that stream of data as a past event. And so you experience it and you're comparing it to the past and you think, well, this happened before, but it's actually happening now. You don't remember every single variable. Your brain kind of reduces things down to the simplest possible form, and it's interpreted.
Yeah.
So,
and that's kind of what makes me think like a time loop would make sense, because I just always struggle with like what would the point of something like that be if it were, intentional on the part of some greater force.
And like it's almost like this photon knew that it was being observed and retroactively changed its trajectory so that it couldn't be observed correctly. And it's just like, whoop.
And welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Casey Rochford.
Yeah, when you get down into the weeds, you're like, is it God?
Welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Casey Rochford, and you should really like and share the video and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, and I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and don't forget we write our own music, and such music is available on iTunes and Spotify and other places. So stick around to the end of the show, and you'll hear a new song. And if you have the time and feel like interneting, go to our website, check it out, ksmvidcast.com, for news, information, and more. So, Casey, what do you want to talk about today? Because I have no idea. This is a surprise to me.
And welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Casey Rochford. Why don't you like and share and subscribe to the channel?
Is this some kind of like time travel kind of thing?
Oh, I do kind of have a sense of deja vu. Kind of like we've done that before.
Yeah.
Well, we've done that like 80 times or something, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like deja vu, or there's that like weird, creepy feeling where everything is just the way it happened before, like right down to like a paper, the way it's sitting on a table, and a car that drives by, or or feel, or
you even like know that it's happening and intentionally attempt to do something different. Like, oh, I'm going to do something completely random, and that too fits into this feeling of I've done this before.
Yeah,
it's the weirdest thing. Like I've experienced deja vu many times growing up. Not so much now as I've gotten older, but when I was a lot younger, it was a common thing. It was like this like shift that occurred. Suddenly you were like, wait, something's not right here, and yeah, it's such a bizarre feeling.
I get it fairly regularly, not often, but I don't know that it's like gone up or down significantly in frequency over my life.
Well, for me, it's probably all the beer.
Yeah.
It slows things down a bit.
the most recent time was I was managing a project at Penn State, so I flew over to Pennsylvania like for the first time, and I was walking around the little downtown area after the workday ended, just kind of seeing the sights. And it was my dad's birthday, so I saw a bench, and I went and sat down on the bench and called him. And I get on the phone with him, and almost instantly I'm hit with this feeling of deja vu. And I've never been to Pennsylvania, much less Penn State, much less this particular corner. And it was like all the cars around me, all the people walking by, the building in front of me, sitting on the bench talking to my dad on his birthday. It felt like it happened before. And
Weird.
and I was so creeped out. Like you get a feeling like that, and you think, is something bad going to happen? Is this a premonition? Like.
Yeah.
But then looking back on it now, I don't get those feelings. I don't have any memory of that ever occurring before that time or anything. It's like that deja vu feeling just vanished. Does
Yeah,
that
that
happen to you?
yeah, the exact same kind of thing. Same thing has happened to me, and I've thought about it a lot because I'm like, in my early days, I was a religious person, and I'm like, well, is this some kind of, I don't know. I've been varying shades of religion, shall we say? At some point, I was like, is this some kind of, like you said, a premonition or something, or is this like a past life kind of thing, or something like that? Is this some kind of like fourth dimensional, like time is nothing and everything is now kind of thing? Like I've struggled a lot to try to figure it out, and I have a couple theories on what causes it. Um, Now that actually being a programmer, in fact, has led me to some kind of insight into this phenomena. Um, I guess. Well, before I go into it, maybe I should ask what do you think? Like, where does this all come from?
Well, yeah, I kind of think it might have something to do with time not being quite as structured as we think it is. Um,
Mm.
kind of like I don't know, if it were like a plane of some sort, floating on whatever. Um, it could kind of like pinch up somewhere, and maybe you just kind of get into a little feedback loop for a moment or something. Uh,
Yeah, that.
Not necessarily like a Groundhog Day thing, but maybe just one iteration, and it's so disorienting because we've talked about before, like what if you could all of a sudden see ultraviolet or infrared or something? You'd be really disoriented because your brain doesn't know how to process that. So much in
Sure.
the same way, if you're caught in a time loop, you'd probably have no clue what was going on, and then you'd come up with a word like deja vu. you know
Sure, and from a quantum physics standpoint, if you look up theories like the one electron universe theory, things get a little wackadoodle. And yeah, I mean, I I think that I'd like to entertain that idea. I think it's possible, though there may be a completely different explanation. Like I said, going back to the programming angle, what if the you're because memories and stuff are as well. I'm no biologist, but as I understand it, it's like sequences of proteins and such that in your brain, wiring and things like that. um so what if somehow at some point, as you are encoding current events into your memory, your brain just suddenly somehow gets mixed up and perceives that stream of data as a past event. And so you experience it and you're comparing it to the past, and you think, well, this happened before, but it's actually happening now. um it, I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. I should probably have some more beer.
You can have some of mine. This thing's
Mm,
giant.
mm.
um, yeah, I mean, I don't know that we know enough about memory to say exactly how it's stored. I don't know that it's something as tangible or even finite as proteins. But uh, I mean, there's also the idea that you've dreamed it before, or something similar enough happened. Because, well, here's the thing about memory: it's really fallible,
Well, that's
and
true because you don't remember every single variable. Your brain kind of reduces things down to the simplest possible form, and it's interpreted.
yeah,
So,
and that's
you
kind of
know,
what makes me think like a time loop would make sense, because when you're experiencing deja vu, you are recalling things with precision, detail,
yeah.
as if it just happened, you know. So
Well, and it's the whole like uh Hanlon's razor, I think. You know, is it possible that you're just simply looking at memories you just created and somehow mistaking them for old memories? I, but again, like you said, we don't know how everything's formed, so anything's possible. Um, I, I tend to lean a little bit towards the metaphysical, a little bit. So I do like theories that support that, but um, at the
what would,
same time, I'm a pragmatic kind of person. Like I think there's a very simple explanation for a lot of things.
yeah, I just always struggle with like what would the point of something like that be if it were, intentional on the part of some greater force. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
what purpose does it serve? Because almost never is it actually like in a moment where something catastrophic happens or something. It's
No,
not.
it's usually the most mundane events. Like
Yeah,
you just pick up the teapot and you start pouring tea, and you're like, "Wait, I remember this."
yeah.
Like it's
Even though we
nothing.
all start looking around thinking of like what could go horribly wrong here, like
Yeah,
what do I need to be looking at? Maybe we're stopping it by stopping and thinking.
huh? Well, there's that whole like, what is it? The double slit experiment. There's an expanded one that well, if I can remember, I'll put it down somewhere there.
That have to
Uh,
do with like super thin uh like heavy metal foil or something, where they put two slits in there and like shot like an electron or a photon, was it?
a photon, yeah,
Yeah.
and so it kept expanding, and God, I hate looking things up, but I might have to look it up for this one. But anyway, so it was confusing because it acted like a particle and a wave at the same time, depending on the circumstances. And they're like, well, we're going to put detectors, and then it kind of like tricked them, and like it's almost like the this photon knew that it was being observed and retroactively changed its trajectory so that it couldn't be observed correctly. And it's just like, whoop, mind
Yeah.
blown.
I
Um,
I think it's electrons or something that behave much in the same way, where you can, I forget what the principle is called, but you can basically know where an electron is, or the particular type of spin that it has at a given moment, but you can't
mhm.
tell both at the same time.
Yeah.
It's really weird, like subatomic shit like that.
Yeah. When you get down into the weeds, you're like, is it
But
God?
yeah, but like that's more chemistry stuff that I'm not super familiar with. Like it's stuff that I learned at one point, but it kind of got shelved, you know.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Uh, I mean, it is. It's such a weird phenomena. Um, Man, I mean, I'd like to hear other people's stories. Like, have other people experienced it? I think everybody has actually, um, at some point in their life, like at least once. And yeah, it's really unsettling. Like, oof, yeah.
and welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Casey Rochford.
Oh my God. Oh, there's a Red Dwarf reference there.
Someone punch him out.
Oh man.
Yeah, I wonder if they've done any. I mean, you can't really do a study on something like that. It's so random, so few and far between. There would just be no way to control variables to even like quantify that something was happening in that particular moment. You know, like we may never really know what's behind the mystique that is deja vu.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this is really subjective. Like if we somehow had like a memory recorder, we might get a little bit closer to understanding what's going on, but we don't. So we just have to rely on people's um, anecdotal explanations, I guess.
You know, now that you mention it, I think a while back I heard about scientists trying to develop ways of actually recording. Maybe it wasn't memories, but like dreams or something.
Hmm.
It could be memories, but I mean, maybe that right there tells you that we know more about how memories are made than I'm aware. Because if you could just hook electrodes up to your brain and interpret the neuronal firings and get some kind of like visual and auditory representation of what's actually occurring in your mind, that would be really interesting. But I think it would be almost unintelligible just because of how abstract and probably how like varied from person to person that thoughts really are.
Well, yeah, I don't think that there's no like common code. It's not like the human brain is programmed in C++ or something like that.
Right.
It's a developmental thing. So
what would a visual representation of a memory look like for someone with aphantasia?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Or I mean, even from one person to another. I mean, that brings up like the I have this idea, um, and it's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's related, that people perceive colors ever so slightly differently, which explains why some people like one particular color or color combination and other people find them abhorrent. Because if you look at it, really, it's just the electromagnetic spectrum. It's wavelengths. That's it. It's our perception that yields the colors that we perceive. So, I think everybody their eyes are a little bit different. The sensors are arranged a little bit differently. So you see things, you see the world differently. And there's a bunch of people that are colorblind for some portion of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So I yeah, we all perceive things completely differently. I mean,
Yeah. So I worked in ophthalmology, so I know a fair amount about color. You know, you have rods and cones in the retina, and the
yeah.
rods are basically your contrast, your night vision, your black and whites, and the cones are, we've got like 3 different cones. Birds and bees have like 4 or something, but basically the cones represent like a certain array of colors. So if you really think about it, you might say, oh, well, everybody sees the same color. One person might call that blue and another might call it purple, but that's perception. But really, they might actually be seeing different colors, because if you think about it, if you've ever played with a design program or something, and you've got your color palette or whatever, you don't just have like 3 choices on the little slider bar. You can slide it and slide it and slide it. Basically, that would be like, oh, I have a few less of these cones that see in the red spectrum and a few more that see in this greenish spectrum, and like just the sheer number of cones in the retina. And this can also change over life too. Don't
Oh,
forget
that's
that.
true. Yeah, your eyes change, like
Yeah, I
improve, or things get worse, like cells die and stuff like that. And
yeah
yeah, that's a good point.
I used to think blue on green was blue on green was just hideous to me, and now I don't mind it.
Hmm.
So maybe I lost some cones over time.
Or gained a few. You never know. Yeah, and it's all a matter of the wavelength and how it's interpreted. I mean, it's very subjective and it's very personal. It depends on how your body grew, essentially. And people want to see things in absolutes, but the world is not absolute, especially when you're talking about translating a wavelength through some kind of squishy organic material into data. Like yeah, with all the variables, the differences between people, nobody's the same. And yeah, it's ugh, that. Oh, I okay. So I just remembered what I was thinking of. So the experiment was the creepy, weird, freaky, like mind blowing experiment is called the delayed choice quantum eraser. So if anybody wants to not sleep tonight, you should look that up. It's really weird, and it makes you think like, oh, this might actually be a simulation, um, which we actually should go into.
Huh. Oh, whether life is a simulation.
Yeah, because there are quite a few prominent scientists like who say it's quite probable, like more probable than not, that we live in a simulation, assuming humankind gets to the point where we can create simulations. And we might be living in a simulation within a simulation within another simulation. And I mean, it could be some kind of inception thing. Cue inception sound. um,
Or Truman
but
Show.
yeah, Truman Show. Yeah. But that, I mean, it should give people pause. And honestly, to me, I find it like a good thing. Um, it's like I like the idea of chaos, that things aren't quite what they seem, that maybe the world isn't absolute, that we're in kind of a crazy, mysterious sea of infinite unknowns, I guess. Not to get a little too woo, but
What if, oh, this is gonna crack your head.
oh, it's been cracked many times, so go ahead.
What what if we did evolve to a point of being able to create lifelike simulations, right? And and it's effectively like, we marketed it and capitalized on it as basically like a holodeck or something. You can plug in and basically go play around at any time or any kind of thing that you can imagine. Just tell us what you want, we'll program it, come back in a month or two or whatever, and you can play the game for however long or whatever. But we destroyed and depleted the planet so much that at one point the leaders of the world came together and asked people, our planet is dying, but we can put ourselves on life support and we'll basically be vegetables, but we'll live on. So who would want to do that and just live perpetually in this holodeck simulation, and we can go back and recreate like medieval times and carry it on from there, and we just like re-evolved like,
Hmm.
in our minds.
Wow, there's so many sci-fi angles there. I mean, you got like Star Trek and uh God, yeah, oh, that's it's a good point. Like if you had if you knew that life as you knew it was coming to an end, wouldn't you want to go that route? Um I mean, it gets into kind of like total recall territory and stuff like that, and questioning what is reality even.
Still have to
Um,
watch that movie.
you should, or read the book. Philip K. Dick, man, I love that guy. right up there with Heinlein, like
Yeah.
one of the best sci-fi authors.
Man in the High Castle is good.
Yeah. Well, and one of the key things about Philip K. Dick is there's never a conclusion that kind of like settles, the differentiation between reality and fantasy. And I think that's a good thing because, yeah, we don't know. It's, yeah, oh man. Yeah, it's a really interesting thought experiment that you brought up there.
And
But
welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Casey Rochford.
uh, well, and one of the here's the thing. Like, I would challenge anybody who's questioning this kind of thing, and they think, well, of course things are real and it's not a simulation. Okay, prove it. Not to me. Prove it to yourself. Prove that you actually exist to yourself. I haven't been able to do it. And yeah, I might be kind of a dumbass, but I see myself as a deep thinker at least. So
I mean, here's the thing about defining existence, though. Like what is it really? Like you kind of have to define that first, right? It's like,
no, not existence, but that being able to tell the difference between reality and a simulation or some kind of fantastical experience. Like, because everything that you would use to prove your own existence as tangible, like real, could be part of the simulation. If you lived in a video game, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to play The Sims, right? And you put on your headset and you're playing this game. Let's say it's first person, not third person. And you want to you want to test to see whether you're in the game or not. Well, the only tools at your disposal are products of the game. So your instruments, your data, your tools, everything comes from within the game. You can't step outside of it and analyze it from the outside. You can only analyze it from the inside, and that's kind of where I see how we are right now. We don't have the ability to like step outside the universe and observe it from that angle. We're stuck using three-dimensional tools and test devices to try to determine whether this is reality. And I see a problem with that.
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those never-ending like circular argument things where you could just yeah. Oh, what do they call it? It's kind of like the God argument or whatever, where you just keep saying, well, like, well, who created God? Well, maybe God created himself, or whatever. Like it's keeps I just can't remember it, diminishing or whatever. Anyway,
oh yeah, it's like self-reference. Yeah,
like what I'm trying to say
recursion.
is like, yeah,
infinite recursion. Yeah.
I would probably point to proof of reality, proof of existing, as the imperfections in our bodies, in our sight. Let's just say that the way we see and perceive the alleged simulation or whatever, if it were created by somebody, you think you would be able to see it perfectly. But
well,
the periphery isn't clear unless you're focused on it, and you've got a blind spot because the optic nerve goes through the retina, and there's certain tricks that you can do to notice that blind spot, but your brain like makes up for it. And I don't know that a program or a simulation could do that and then flop back and forth between being able to recognize the blind spot and then having your brain go back to like,
why couldn't it? If you have, we're not talking the kind of computers we have. We're not talking about like some Dell that you buy.
Well, and
you're getting
that's
to tell.
that's where you get into that, like, well, it could just be a supercomputer, it could just be like super programmers, you know, you just keep building the complexity.
But the counter argument is no different than the kind of arguments that believers in God use to support their own beliefs, like, oh, the complexity of the universe. Well, there has to be intelligent design, because look at how everything's so complex. It's no different than what you're just saying. You know, it's just kind of a inversion of that. And that's where I'm saying it's like, I would take the atheistic approach. Like, I don't know either way. Like, I'm willing to entertain the idea that we live in a simulation, or maybe not. But you know, there's no proof either way, because how can we prove it? Like, you can't prove to me that we exist or that we don't exist, honestly.
But yeah, I come back to the definition of existence, because if let's say you're born and you die in a simulation, like, and you're just a bunch of sprites or whatever, um, what's to say you don't exist, like, to yourself, to your own consciousness, if you
Yeah,
want to call it that.
this is getting really deep. Well, okay, I hit the little tilde and I type resurrect. um, but yeah, or it, the thing is, like, there's no way to know for sure, and maybe it's not a question worth really entertaining because it's so big, but it's something that people should entertain, because I think it's important to recognize how incalculable the universe is, and how impossible it is to truly understand things, and how actually small we are, and how fragile this place that we live is, even if it's just a bunch of data in a computer or something like that. Like, we should cherish it, um and be good to other people, I guess. I don't know. That's where it's led me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, if it were a simulation, why wouldn't there be more achievable space travel and other little Easter eggs to discover, like
Oh,
other
but
beings out there, and you
there
know.
are, but it just, like, you know, do you just like start playing a video game and start off in God mode? No, you challenge yourself.
Well, I would hit up, up, down, down, B, left, right,
or
pause.
or if you die, ABBA. Yeah, exactly. But you know, it's the struggle that's important, because maybe there's more things to understand, and if everything is given to you, handed out on a platter, like, well, you know, you haven't learned all the things that we could learn. Maybe it's an experiment. I have no idea. But the thing is, like, when the further you dig into this, it's like, becomes very evident that the probability of our existence being a simulation is very, very high. Or yeah,
What if it is like a video game, like Ikari Warriors 3, where it never ends? The last level just loops and loops, and that's deja vu. Like,
yeah,
that's just where we end, and then, you know, maybe we start a new game from that point or something. You know, like that's our
yeah.
next life. Yeah.
I just saw a video from a YouTuber I've never run into before, but he was like, you know, it was a little tiny short film, like, what if you could quick save in real life? And it was great. Like, if I remember, I'll put the link in there. Um, it's fun. Um, but yeah, that it. Oh man, wow, we've gone way out into woo territory, but you know, it's kind of like quantum woo territory,
Yeah,
which is good.
it's no, it's I think it's a lot more feasible than like mystical supernatural stuff. Like, if if there's like a feasible level of technology that could be achieved where something like that could actually be constructed. And I mean, here's the thing, going back to perception and how our brains completely get around that blind spot in our retina. If you're in an imperfect simulation, it's going to fill in the gaps. Your brain or whatever is going to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's the thing, like no matter what, like if it were a simulation, I think there would be some component of us that does actually exist. Like we're playing it, whether we know it or not. Like maybe we
Oh,
are just some like brain in a jar somewhere, or like a dead husk that's being like fed with like lubricants and like nutritional juices and flavorless health pucks.
no, yeah, I totally agree that there would probably be some kind of like beyond whatever shell the simulation is. There's another layer where we exist in some kind of corporeal form or something like that. Um, and yeah, but the fact that we try to create these things, how's it going to look in 1,000 years? Are we going to be able to create a simulation so realistic that people could do we have the technology to connect your brain into this system? I mean, we're almost there now. So what's it going to look like in that time frame? And so if we achieve that, it kind of indirectly proves the simulation theory that we did it, so somebody else could have done it, and now it's a simulation within a simulation. Somebody else created some kind of digital world and stuff, and everybody's living in it, and then they created a new digital world inside that digital world. I mean, it's super. Well, got to play the Inception sound again. Um, but maybe that is possibly how deja vu comes about, because programming isn't perfect. Like there are definitely errors, and there's possibilities that things aren't quite set up correctly, and maybe you're like it's some kind of loop of a data stream or something like that. I have no idea, but
I mean, that could explain people who see ghosts, people who
yeah.
see UFOs.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And I want to say, speaking of ghosts, like I was thinking about this the other day. People are like, well, ghosts. Most people think ghosts are images of dead people, right? Like somebody was alive and they died and now they're a ghost. Well, what if it's not a dead person? What if it's like something that's embedded in the system, like a turbulence that's stuck in the system from somebody who was alive? Because if you think about it, if they were dead, a ghost would be a dead person. You just see a translucent body on the ground. You see an alive person repeating
Yeah.
over and over again the same kind of thing.
So
So
maybe you're seeing a print of their deja vu.
ooh, oh man, that got deep. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, because I always thought like if a ghost has no corporeal form, like it's fun to watch those ghost hunting shows and
Oh,
like
I
the
love them.
gadgets that they make to like talk to them, and you hear these noises that are like kill, and they're like, whoa, I said kill.
Yeah. After probably like 5 hours of recording, they finally got like just the right sound from like a motorcycle passing by outside.
But yeah, if it was some kind of like imprints, some sort of psychological imprint on the fabric of space time of
Mm-hmm.
somebody that experienced a moment of deja vu that was some kind of loop, whether in time or a simulation, it's just some kind of like burnt in print, like like the old school TVs, where if you like left it paused on something for too long, it would etch that image into your screen like for a long time.
Yeah, burn in. Like how many video games I've played in the 80s where it's like I'm playing, a game of Raiden, and there's a Pac-Man, like ghostly Pac-Man board on there. Yeah. I oh man, this is crazy. I had no idea we would go down this path. This is actually pretty good. And I think it's all interconnected.
It could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, there might be connections that people have never drawn before. But
Hmm.
that's just the way it is on kitchen sink microscopy.
It is. And I think it's important that people question things and question themselves, um and explore. And I think things like this lead people to explore. And maybe we might someday discover that this is all just made up, and that's okay. But or as with many scientific expeditions, we may find things we didn't even know we were looking for. So it's good either way, I think.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm. Well, is there any other thoughts you have on it, or?
Oh, actually, I have a lot of thoughts, honestly. Probably too many to coalesce into coherent thought at this moment. But
Yeah, this would be a good one to revisit with some viewer feedback.
yeah. No, this is actually like a really good topic. And I think we went in a really interesting direction as a result of this. Like, probably a direction that most people wouldn't go. Um, I mean, as we tend to do here on Kitchen Sink Microscopy.
Well, yeah, when most people recount deja vu, the person they're talking to is like, "Oh, that's crazy. I've had that happen," and that's the extent of their conversation about it. You know?
Yeah, and now we went into like, double slit experiment, quantum physics, like, you know, simulation theory and stuff like that. Yeah, that's
Ghosts being
ghost.
etches in space time of deja vu.
Hmm. Man, that wow. And I so I often like I just want to say, like, I just want to throw in this whole thing, like, have you ever laid down on the ground and watched the stars, or watched like the ISS fly over or something, and you just look out into space and think how fucking small you are? Like,
Mm.
uh, the galaxy, like, traveling at the speed of light, we would be dead by the time we got to the other side. um it's that big, and there's so many more galaxies. Like, we can't even count them all.
Our great
Like,
great grandchildren would be dead.
yeah, it's crazy. Star Trek leads people to think like, oh, you just push a button and shoo, you're off, going 10 times the speed of light or something like that. Yeah, well, I don't know if we could do that. So far, we haven't managed that. But still, you think about it, and think about how big the universe is, and how small we are. I mean, we're just like a speck in this giant puddle of stars. And to us it's big, but to the universe it's another speck in a giant puddle of galaxies. Like, wow, how
Yeah.
small we are. And that's the thing, like, I think about that shit, and I think, yeah, I gotta talk to my neighbor, like, we just gotta get along, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, because this might be all there is. And yeah, okay, 10 years ago we didn't know, we had no proof that there were planets. at all. We thought this might be all there is. And now we know every star has planets. So there's planets all over the place, but are there people there? Are there weird creatures there? Like we have no idea. And we might not ever see them.
I love that video. You've probably seen this. It starts out at like a quark or something, and then like shows you like the relative size to like an atom, and then that goes up to a molecule, and basically it just keeps going like that until you get out to like the universe, and you just kind of see in like hyperlapse time how freaking small we are. Like,
Yeah.
and even from like a quark to where we are, what if there's things like sentient beings existing so small that we can't perceive them? And what if we're so small that giant freaking beings out there somewhere can't even perceive us?
Oh man. Wow.
Oh man, we're getting deep again.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Like, we've managed to figure this out, but one rogue asteroid or something comes along and that's it. We're done. Everything we've learned, all of those videos and stories and papers we've written are extinguished. And what if we're all there is? What if there's another species out there that doesn't hear our message? You know, like, wow.
That's why I think Inner Light was one of the greatest episodes of television, period, but of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Just like getting hit with this alien probe that makes you experience an entire lifetime of somebody on a planet that has been dead and gone for centuries, just so that there's a way to like carry on the heritage and the knowledge that they had as a culture, you know, like that's such a cool idea.
It is. That episode made me cry. Like, it makes me cry every time. As soon as Picard like looks up and sees that rocket flying up, and when he plays the flute, like, oh man, it hits you in the feels. Yeah. and yeah, life is fragile. Like, space is a dangerous place. Like, it is not safe at all. Yeah, man. Oh, this we're going down the rabbit hole here. But it's a good thing. I'd like to hear other things that people have to say about this, because I see that there's kind of a connection between some of the more woo stuff and science in this regard. Like, you know, if you get into quantum physics, you start to perceive things differently. Yeah, it's not all black and white. But man, oh yeah, this is a good topic. Yeah, I thought this would be like, like a 10-minute kind of thing, and we're coming up on like 3/4 of an hour.
Never 10 minutes with us.
No, not at all. Yeah, this is good.
I think our shortest episode was like 20 some odd minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's back when we were like, we should try to keep it under half an hour.
Yeah,
that lasts very long.
No, this is actually a really good topic, and I feel like there's probably a lot more that should be discussed. There's a lot more angles we could address.
It would be cool to talk to somebody who's had a super profound experience of deja vu, where something actually did happen that was like meaningful and profound, and that, or maybe they had a full clear memory of something and were able to like change it, you know, like saw somebody get hit by a car and they were able to prevent it or something. Like that would be cool to hear.
So just as an aside, speaking of like deja vu and premonitions, I remember a time. I mean, I've had a few experiences like this, but so my friend Rob, well, you know Rob. Rob and I were like driving on the waterfront, and there a car stopped, and we stopped, and I had this vision in my head that we were going to get rear-ended. Like immediately, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I turned to him to tell him, "Hey, bro, we're going to get hit." And then, bam! Like this car rear-ended us. And it, yeah, like where did that come from?
Maybe because you stopped in the middle of the road.
But things like that have happened like many times, but I've never
No,
had
I know what you're talking about. I've had that kind of feeling.
powerful, like, oh, this is totally going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, oh, man.
Yeah, time's not what we think it is, that's for sure.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. I think we've had enough beer and probably covered enough to get people thinking.
I still probably have like a normal beer worth of beer in there.
That's a pretty big beer.
Mighty fine beer.
Mighty fine beer.
So, yeah, leave us your deja vu experiences in the comments, and leave us your deja vu experiences in the comments, and leave us your deja vu experiences in the comments. And thanks for deep sink diving with us.
A white hole?
So what is it?
No one's ever seen it before. Oh man, yeah, that was a good Red Dwarf episode. But yeah, thanks for deep sink diving with us into the topic of, well, I mean, it started off as deja vu, but it kind of went into like reality, like what is reality and the universe. So yeah, oh, man, I'd like to hear people's thoughts though.
All right, well, have a good night.
See you later.
And welcome to another Kitchen Sink Microscopy.